Age of Empires 4, the long-awaited successor to a saga that redefined RTS or real-time strategy game, has taken the world by storm. Not for its innovation, but for its faithful recreation of an old game. The game has multiple civilizations that cover a lot of territory, from the Longbowmen firing down at the prideful and chivalrous knights to the Mongols looting and pillaging all of Asia and Eastern Europe. In this series of videos, we will cover the differences and gameplay choices that these civilizations have and how their real-life counterparts developed. Today, we will be talking about one of the most peculiar and a personal favorite of mine, civilizations of Eastern Europe, the Rus.
If you strike me down, I will grow more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Firstly, let's go over the Rus overview. According to the strength staff in the Age of Empires website, as skilled hunters, playing the Rus means the wilderness is yours to command. They reap key benefits from their surroundings, particularly in gathering resources to build up a strong economy quickly. Enemies facing the Rus will find it difficult to disrupt their growth. They gain steady incomes of gold from the hunting cabin, which acts as a standard meal, and the unique bounty score when killing Gaia animals. With the bounty system, players earn gold when killing any animal on the map. This contributes to the player's bounty total. As it increases, food harvest and hunting cabin's gold rate also increase. The Rus' powerful early game defense capabilities make them a commendable foe in early ages. They have stronger palisades in place of early access walls, access to knights starting in Age 2, and wooden fortresses, improved outposts, with unique technologies. Their unique influence provides them with more wood when lumber camps are built near wooden fortresses. Battle-wise, the Rus are known for their mounted warrior monk that can buff surrounding units, and the Streltsy, a powerful gunpowder unit. The Rus civilization's unique attributes provide a lively challenge to those eager to leverage its advantages. The history of the Rus is both fascinating and bloody. The Slavic peoples were completely isolated from the political sphere of the Latin world, and did not have much contact with civilizations like the English and French that were particularly under the influence of the papacy. Before the arrival of the Varangian Vikings, the Slavic tribes lived a relatively peaceful life in complete isolation of the rest of the world. The harsh winters made it hard for them to survive, and their lack of central authority made them vulnerable to their neighbors. That changed after the arrival of the Varangians, which, after raiding and pillaging, decided to settle and rule these Slavic peoples, slowly assimilating into their culture, a trait that they shared with the Normans. But how did they relate this part of history to their Dark Age? Outside of the Lodia ship, there is no reference to their Viking ancestry. The ship clearly resembles a longboat, particularly a drakkar, and during the Varangian period of the Rus history, these ships did serve as attack, fishing, and trade ships. This can be appreciated by how these early Vikings utilized both the Volga and the Dnieper River as a highway to trade with these Slavic tribes and also with the Greeks in Constantinople. Byzantine's Wen relic. Outside of that, there is no reference to their Viking ancestry. As a side note, they included a model for a man-at-arms in a promotional event that closely resembles the Varangian Vikings. The special outposts that the Rus have access to are referred to in the campaign video forts and Kremlins, in which they also explain how these were constructed by stacking wood. The special mill that the Rus have access to, called the Hunting Cabin, is a reference to the profitable fur trade that made these principalities lots of money. It is also why the Rus have a bounty system and gain gold from each animal hunted, with the exception of fish, of course. For landmarks, for the Feudal Age, the Rus get two options. One is the Kremlin, a wooden fortress based on the heavily fortified center of Moscow. It is based on the current Kremlin from the capital of Russia, but it is wooden because of how at the beginning it was a wooden structure, but eventually it slowly evolved into the Kremlin we know today because of numerous raids and devastating fires, which is mentioned in the Birch Barricades Mastery of the Rus. The second option, and by far the most popular one, is the Golden Gate. Ironically, the gate was a fortification and not a market as depicted in the game, but the choice of making it so is because of how much trade it brought to the Principality of Kiev. The name is a reference to the golden arcs of the church that was built next to it, that were visible from outside the city. During the Feudal Age, the Rus gained access to early knights. This is referred to as Drusina retinue in the tech tree. This might be a reference to boyars, the landowning class of knights, or to the Drusina itself, which were the royal guard of the Rurikid family, the princess descendants of the Varangian Vikings. During this period, according to the Age of Empires official website, the influence of the Eastern Byzantine culture can be seen in the Rus, both in their early heavily armored cavalry and in one of the landmarks that they have access to in order to advance to the Castle Age, the Abbey of the Trinity. This abbey is based on the Trinity Lavra of Saint Sergius, which is the most important monastery of the Russian Orthodox Church. Although at the beginning it was made of wood, it eventually evolved into the stone structure we see depicted in the game. The domes in the church represent that Byzantine influence mentioned before. Here is the famous Hagia Sophia from Age of Empires 2 for reference. The other option is the High Trade House. This landmark is based on the Old English Yard, the main building of the Muscovy Company, which was in charge of trade between Moscow and England. This company was founded in order to find an alternative route to China, since trade in the Mediterranean was cut off by the Ottomans by 1553. The first expedition was unsuccessful in making it to China, but they did find their way into a monastery. The explorers, under the leadership of Mr. Chancellor, were summoned by Tsar Ivan the Terrible, and were asked about the route because of how their neighbors cut them off from trade with the West. After this, relations between England and the Tsardom of Russia were established, benefiting both parties. In the Castle Age, the Rus that we play as represent the Duchy of Moscow. According to the website, this is during the fall of the Mongols. Here we can clearly see the influence that the Mongol conquests had over the Rus by them gaining access to the horse archer. This makes absolute sense because the Rus learned the techniques from their conquerors and incorporated them into their army. In the video Horse Archers from the Rise of Moscow campaign, it is detailed that these riders used the same tactics as the Mongols. They would ride in, fire, and then leave to reload. They also served as border patrols and scouts due to their mobility. At this age, the Rus also gain access to the warrior monks, a unique mounted religious unit that also serves as a military unit. Although their power to fight is not exceptional, they also have an area of effect buff that increases the attack and armor of nearby units. But how does this relate to the historical Rus? Well, because of how monks participated in battle and blessed and inspired the units before, during, and after each encounter. There is a famous scene from the Battle of Kulikovo in which a warrior monk fought a Tatar champion and they both fell during this bloody encounter. This covers both their warrior aspect and their inspiration buff, which we also see in other civs like the Holy Roman Empire, which I will cover next. To advance to the Imperial Age, the Rus have two options. The most popular one is the High Armory, which is supposed to represent a building with the same name within the Moscow Kremlin. This building was used to store, purchase, and produce weapons and various household items for the Tsars. The other option, and by far the less popular, is the Spasskaya Tower, a castle that comes with emplacements ready. Its name translates to Savior Tower. This tower is the main tower on the eastern wall of the Kremlin. The Spasskaya Tower was built in 1491 by the Italian architect Pietro Antonio Solari. Initially, it was named the Frolovskaya Tower after the church of Frol and Lavre in the Kremlin, which is no longer there. In this last period of the Rus, we make a full transition into the Duchy of Moscow and the early Tsardom of Russia. During this last age, the Rus gain access to the Streltsy, which, if they look familiar, is because they were the main infantry unit for the Russians in Age of Empires III, where they are called the Strelet, but act as a trash unit. Unlike their AoE 3 counterparts, the Streltsy are a really powerful unique unit that can seal the late game when massed and managed properly. The word Streletsy means shooter or rifleman. Their real-life counterpart is also mentioned in the history video of the Rise of Moscow campaign, which has the same name. In this video, they also mention their armament, which consisted of a bardiche, a type of axe that doubled as a gun rest for precise aiming, and an arquebus, that was their main weapon. In real life, these regular troops made the Muscovite army the most advanced at the time, something that is well reflected in their in-game effectiveness. They were also a social class, consisting of mainly tradespeople and farmers. So, did the Rus live up to their real-life counterpart in-game? In my opinion, yes. Although at the early ages they seemed way too Slavic and not too Varangian, I understand the decisions were made for gameplay purposes. Their army is already strong and versatile, something that gives them an edge during the late game. The references to all outside influences these Slavic peoples received are well presented in a manner that is noticeable to the player, and the feel of hardy survival, in my opinion, was nailed. The next time you want to play as the hardy Slavic from the north, be sure to check out the Rus. That is it for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if so, please give it a like. They are free and they help me keep going with this little project I have going on. Hopefully, I release all of these videos before they release new civs and I have to go over them. This was all. Deus Volt.